Hello and welcome back. It's History Video Day and we are at Mourneview, the home of the Lurgan Blues, aka Glenavon. When I do these videos, I don't know what to expect. I do my history, I do my research, and I try and pick out significant events. And I did the same with Glenavon. And I quickly realised, the same with Crusaders, that you need about 3 or 4 videos to do it justice. So I'm going to tell you my wee history I've found of Glenavon, and I hope you enjoy another wee journey through time in the Irish League. So here we go. This is great, by the way. Pitch side, Gary Hamilton's place. He'd probably be standing. But anyway, let's talk about Glenavon. Glenavon were formed in 1889. They were formed in Eastdale's public house in Lurgan. Now, I had a bit of a Google to see if I could find where this place was, but I don't think it's there anymore. I couldn't find anything on it, so we just came straight to Mourneview. Glenavon joined the Irish League in 1911 after Bohemians of Dublin withdrew from the league. Their first success came in season 1920-21 when they won the City Cup. And their home is Mourneview Park, which they leased from 1895. They purchased this ground in 1924 because the directors felt that the club was in a sound financial position and it would be a sensible purchase to make. It's been their home ever since. It's my favourite ground in the Irish League. Due to World War II, the club didn't play any senior football between the years 1941 and 1946. I got a wee memorial there for those from the war. That's lovely. So now we're going to get the story started. In 1947, the Irish League resumed, with Glenavon recommencing their senior football adventure. They have a claim to fame in that they're the first Irish League club to travel by air to a game inside the British Isles. And that occasion was in 1949 when Aberdeen and the club arranged a friendly at Pittodrie in Aberdeen. The game itself finished 0-0. They say a standout in the game was a young man called Wilbur Cush. And Wilbur Cush went on to become a bit of a Glenavon legend. You read about him, fascinating story actually, but I'll leave that to you. So anyway, 11 players and 3 club officials travelled in 2 7-seater private charter rapid planes. I don't know what, I think it's Rapid. Indeed, only 2 of the party had ever flown before. Let this tractor go past. Doing a wee bit of renovation work on one of the wee training pitches up the top. Anyway, yeah, so only 2 of the party had ever flown before. Those 2 were a Maurice McLafferty and an Eric Mealy, and the reason why they'd gone by plane before was because they both served in the RAF during the war. So 3 years after making history, Glenavon decided to make history again. They made history because they became the first provincial club, which means club outside, or the city outside Belfast, to win the Irish League. Their manager was a man named Harry Walker, formerly of Belfast Celtic. And at this point I ask, what would have happened if Belfast Celtic hadn't folded in 1949? Would Harry Walker have even been at Glenavon? Good question. We'll never know the answer, Anyway, I reckon you could make a good video of Harry Walker alone, reading up on sort of his history in football. It's great reading, but I'll save that for another day. Anyway, in 1957, again, it was Glenavon making history. They became the first Northern Ireland club to take part in the European Cup. They played a Danish club, Our House, and were defeated 3-0 in aggregate. And that's been their only appearance in the European Cup. Now, it should also be stated at this point that Glenavon were in the European Cup because they won the league in 1957, and they were history makers again because they became the first provincial club, nearly said that wrong, to win an Irish Cup and league double. The history makers, that should be Glenavon's nickname, the history makers. Anyway, in 1959/60 season, Glenavon won their third Gibson Cup and the last one they've done. They qualified for the European Cup again. Now this is where it gets interesting. I'm trying to get out of the wind here because there's a breeze. They qualified for the European Cup and were drawn against an East German side, Wismut Karl Marx Stadt. Unfortunately, Glenavon never played the match, and this is the reason why. Both teams were refused visas to each other's country, and UEFA determined that the game could be played at neutral venues. However, Glenavon withdrew from the competition because of the higher cost and the lower revenue which would happen due to this moving of the game. There's a man, his name was Jimmy Jones. Without Jimmy Jones, would Glenavon have won 3 league titles, including a double and numerous other accolades? We'll talk about Jimmy here for a minute. Jimmy was a centre forward and his stats are ridiculous. His career spanned 20 years, and like so many, I could do a video on him alone, but for the purposes of this video, we're just going to focus on his Glenavon career. So he played for Glenavon between 1951 and 1962, and he scored, and I can't get the exact stats in this here, but approximately 517 goals during his time at Glenavon. He also won 3 league titles, 3 Irish Cups, 2 Gold Cups, 3 City Cups and 2 Ulster Cups. I'd say he's Glenavon's greatest ever player. I've listed 2 names there so far. I've listed Jimmy Jones and I've listed another fella, Wilbur Cush. And them names prop up in the history. They crop up in the history of Glenavon a long time ago. Anyway, whilst we're talking about players, we need to mention Sean Fallon. And I mentioned Sean Fallon in a wee video that I did up here a couple of years ago on Korean Repeat. Less said about that the better. Anyway, Sean Fallon signed for Glenavon in July 1949, so before they won their league titles, from Sligo. £200 it cost Glenavon. Fallon saw the Irish League as a stepping stone to England and Scotland. So the Irish League was deemed to be a higher standard than the League of Ireland, and you could get yourself noticed more in it back then. Times have changed. Anyway, Fallon left Glenavon in March 1950, so he arrived in July 1949 and left in March 1950. He went to Celtic for £5,000. Plus there was a £1,000 add-on after 6 games, and I'm sure there was other wee add-ons, but that was the main ones. Anyway, Sean Fallon, Sligo man who played here at Mourneview, went on to win the European Cup as Jock Stein's assistant at Celtic. Madness. So, I'm going to take a walk around the outside of the pitch. I'm not going on the pitch because the groundsman would absolutely kill me, because the pitch has just been renovated for the new season. So anyway, back to the story. In 1961, again, Glenavon made history because they became the first Irish League club to play in the Cup Winners' Cup competition. And they met Leicester City, who defeated them 7-2 in aggregate. So the 50s and the early 60s were Glenavon's golden era in Irish League football. They had great players who they could have sold, but they kept them all instead of making the money out of them. And keeping them players probably won them all that they won. Glenavon have won the following: 7 Irish Cups, 1 League Cup, 5 City Cups, 4 Gold Cups, 3 Ulster Cups, 2 Floodlit Cups, 2 County Antrim Shields, even though they're not in County Antrim. Don't know. 27 Mid-Ulster Cups, a North-South Cup, 2 Charity Shields and 3 league titles. They've only ever won 1 European tie, which was a UEFA Cup game in 1995 against Icelandic team FH. They drew 0-0 at home and recorded a famous 1-0 victory away in Iceland through Scotsman Sammy Johnson. So we continue. Glenavon made their UEFA Cup debut in 1977. That was fun. You hear this here. They were drawn against PSV Eindhoven and they were beat 11-2 in aggregate. But prior to the game, the entire team was put in the transfer market by their manager Alan Campbell. Now, I got this video off BBC Rewind, which is brilliant for archive footage. Watch this here and listen to Alan Campbell and Bobby Carlyle talking. It's brilliant, brilliant.
Yeah, I'm serious, Brian. Actually, I'll tell you the whole story. I'll tell you what happened. After last Saturday's match against Coleraine, the players had a meeting after the match, and now this is 3 days before we move off to Eindhoven, and they decided that they wanted appearance money, and rightly so, because they're professional footballers. But they also stated that if they didn't get the appearance money, they wouldn't play for Glenavon. And they also stated, wherever they got their fact from, which were 100% correct, if Glenavon couldn't field a team going into Europe, they would be fined £1,000. So to me, that was putting a gun to Glenavon's head, and it's nothing short than blackmail. And I had to step in and do something about it, and I'm serious about putting the whole team up for transfer.
And you actually told them then before you left for Eindhoven?
I told them on Monday night's training session.
You had the same problem, hadn't you, before the home match with Eindhoven?
It's the problem's not asking for the money. I don't blame them asking for it. They're professional footballers. The problem was the statement that they weren't going to go if they didn't get it. That was where the problem started. Not looking for the money.
So what's the next step, Alan?
If anybody's interested in any of the players, get in touch with me.
I think they're all somewhat surprised by it, and we think that it has been blown out of all proportion, although anything that the manager has stated has been fairly near factual. The fact that we asked for some money, and this I don't think was turned down by the manager. He was quite keen to push our claim, but it was suggested that perhaps if the money was not forthcoming, they may not have a team. Now, this has been put over as being putting a gun to the heads of the directors. I would say that everyone involved realises that that gun was loaded with blanks and there was never any chance of us going through with that. It was simply to try to jog the directors into at least offering us a compromise. Nothing was offered.
There was another significant thing that happened in the history of Glenavon Football Club. It was in 1994. I'm not going to talk about it today. Linfield fans want me to talk about it. Glenavon fans wouldn't. Portadown fans wouldn't. So we'll save that for the Linfield video if I ever get round to doing it. We have to talk about where Glenavon are at now. Glenavon are managed by Mr. Gary Hamilton, beautiful human being. He is their longest serving post-war manager, and he's been at the helm for 13 years and he's still registered as a player manager, and I think he's played more or less every season. What a man. He's won them 2 Irish Cups. He makes the odd appearance. Brilliant. We're here in the car park of Glenavon Football Club. I'm going to stand here out of the wind, and I'm going to finish off with a fun story. And I couldn't believe this when I read it. And Glenavon fans of a certain vintage will know it. Cliftonville fans of a certain vintage will know it. But here we go, I'm going to tell you all it. Glenavon played Cliftonville here at Mourneview. And after the game, Sammy Johnson, who I talked about earlier, and Pat McAllister had words. Pat McAllister called Sammy a clown. Sammy didn't like that, and Packy didn't like that, and the two of them had a full-on fight in the car park. They thought it had blown over until 2 days later they were watching the news. The headline was Sammy Johnson assaulted by 2 Cliftonville players. Oh, that's Irish League behaviour. So anyway, ironically, this incident led to Pat McAllister leaving the Reds and joining Coleraine, because he expected Cliftonville to back him over the incident. And Cliftonville were like, nah, we're not. You're fighting, like, we're not going to do anything. So he joined Coleraine. And who did he become teammates with a couple of years later? Sammy Johnson. There you go. That's a brief history again of another Irish League club. And I've left out so many things. I've left out Glenn Ferguson, I've left out McCoy, I've left out loads of players. But when you start doing these videos, you find that there's a lot more to it than meets the eye. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed that again, and if you like, subscribe and share and do all the usual nonsense, then that helps. It gets more people watching the videos, and I can do more of them. But this is Glenavon, this is Mourneview. Peace out, baby.